breaking down the Vikings from the perspective of a former NFL General Manager of the Year. It's Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, presented by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers.
Welcome to Jeff Diamond's Purple Report, Thursday edition, brought to you today every Thursday during the Vikings season, and every Monday also by your select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. I'm Jeff Diamond, former Vikings GM, former Tennessee Titans president. Our producer is Jason Stormer. Does a great job putting all of our clips together.
Oh, thank you.
Organizing our show.
Wow.
And Jason, how are you today? Are you unshoveled, unburied from the 15 inches of snow?
So I was stuck for about 30 minutes yesterday.
That's always not fun.
So I got out of my spot, no problem, but I then got stuck in the middle of the street because the middle of the street just wasn't plowed whatsoever. Tried to maneuver my way out of there, tried to turn my wheels a lot, tried to even dig it out a little bit, but it was pretty much all ice. Thankfully, a good Samaritan in a Subaru came by and helped me out, gave me a little push, and I went along my way. Should have tipped him or something like that. It was an absolute mess out there. Were you able to drive around okay the last couple days?
It was okay. It was not easy, but yes, I had to do a little shoveling to get out of our driveway before the plow showed up. But it was, wow, what a crazy storm that was. But here we are after the Packer fiasco and heading into Week 18, the final week of the regular season against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. No Justin Fields this week, but I want to start the show, of course, talking about the main topic of the week in the NFL, Damar Hamlin, and the terrible situation that unfolded in that Cincinnati-Buffalo game on Monday night. Now, fortunately, we are hearing good news today about Damar and that he is awake. He's on a ventilator, but he's communicating by writing and squeezing people's hands and has made substantial progress, according to the doctors at the hospital in Cincinnati. So that's all fantastic news to hear, because that was really a scary situation, Jason. And I think the lesson from this is, first of all, at all sporting events, it's really important to have defibrillators, to have medical technicians, medical devices available. Well, I'm talking high school, college, kids sports, whatever. Make sure that those defibrillators are there, because without that, it would have been a really bad situation for Damar Hamlin. And he is still in critical condition, so he's still got a ways to go, but things are pointing up, and that's a good sign.
Yes, it's a miracle. That he's progressing this way. I think he was able to write a few things down today, and we're recording this on Thursday, January 5th. I think he even inquired right away, hey, did we win the game?
Yes.
You know what I mean? That
was his first question. Yes.
And so, I mean, that's heartbreaking, but also it fills your heart at the same time.
Yes.
I've actually seen a few people go down with heart conditions in similar instances at sporting events. One of my coaches during my junior year at high school for baseball went down with a heart attack just right before we were getting ready for the game. Very early in my career, just a few years ago, I was calling a game for Annandale High School softball in a state tournament, and one of the opposing coaches went down in the middle of the game, had to resuscitate him and call an ambulance and everything like that. So I didn't see what happened to Damar live, thankfully. I didn't catch on about it until maybe even like a half hour later. But it's so scary. It really is.
It definitely
for everyone involved. And just you got to just really praise the people that were on the field, that were right there for him in that moment. They saved his life.
Absolutely, they did. And no question about that. So, as we said, positive news. It's also setting up certainly an unprecedented situation for the NFL in trying to decide whether to move the start of the playoffs in order to finish that game. And nobody really wanted to talk about that until he started to make some progress. And now the discussions are going to amp up, because there is obviously a lot at stake in the AFC if that game is not played, because Buffalo would be sitting a half a game behind Kansas City Whereas if they end up winning that game against the Bengals, they would have the first seed. And so I think the NFL probably has to play that game, and I think they're probably going to play it next week and move back the start of the playoffs by 1 week, which would give the Vikings 1 more week to prepare for their first-round opponent, which is most likely going to be the New York Giants. But I don't see any way that they don't play this game and uphold the integrity of the playoffs. So we shall see how that one plays out. That'll certainly be interesting and a tough call by the league, and I'm sure they're waiting to see what happens on Sunday with the various games involving these teams. But really, I think there's probably no way around that, so we'll see how that shakes out. Meanwhile, on the Vikings front, got some bad news about the offensive line this week, and Brian O'Neill not only had a calf injury against the Packers, chasing down that interception, return for the touchdown, he also has a partially torn Achilles tendon, is going to have to undergo surgery. We know Austin Schlottman also is out with a broken fibula. Garrett Bradbury, Kevin O'Connell says he hopes he's back soon, which that would be a benefit of pushing the playoffs back, because that would probably ensure that Bradbury's back for the first round. And meanwhile, they've added Greg Mance, who's a veteran center, has 32 career starts, also added a tackle, Bobby Evans, to the practice squad. But I'll say this about Brian O'Neill. I think he is an elite tackle. I think he is a Pro Bowl caliber tackle. He and Christian Darrisaw both, I think, are the kind of bookend tackles that we had. I was very fortunate to have back in the 90s when we had Todd Stussy and Corey Stringer that were anchors of that 15-1 team at both tackle spots for us. And now you lose O'Neill. Now, the only positive news that we were hearing is that Blake Brandel is likely to return off of IR for the playoffs. He played reasonably well when he was in for Darrisaw during Darrisaw's concussion protocol. So that is a positive. They can get Brandel back. That'll help the cause. Oli Udoh, he's a guy that played guard last year, struggled at inside. Tackle is his more natural position. But again, you lose a Brian O'Neill, you're losing a top player. And when I think ahead to the playoffs, Jason, and think about guys like Kayvon Thibodeau of the Giants, Nick Bosa of the 49ers, who they could see second round, one of the elite pass rushers in the league, and then the Eagles have a host of pass rushers, edge rushers. The Cowboys, if they happen to run into them, Micah Parsons, we know what he's done to the Vikings, and DeMarcus Lawrence. So it's going to be tough. I think that it's going to be a challenge for Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips, the offensive coordinator. I think they're going to have to kind of reboot this offense, go to more short, quick passes, get the ball to Jefferson. You cannot have a game like he had in Green Bay where he only had 5 targets and 1 reception. That cannot happen. Partially it was on Justin because he was wearing the wrong cleats to start the game, and he's slipping and sliding all over the place, which was ridiculous.
Apparently a lot of players were,
exactly.
Which I'm sorry, you play at Lambeau Field every single year. You should know by this. You have players that played for the Packers recently, Chandon Sullivan, Zadarius Smith. Ow.
Yeah,
I don't like that excuse, Jeff. I'm sorry.
No, exactly. And that's where I say the coach needs to not suggest, he needs to tell them.
Yeah.
Tell them, these are the shoes you need to wear with the 7 stud cleats and all that. But hopefully they've learned their lesson for the future. So it's going to be interesting come playoff time. But meanwhile, the Bears are up next. But as we kind of look ahead to the playoffs, and before we go there, I want to bring on a couple of thoughts as we think more about Damar Hamlin, his situation. A couple of Vikings are former teammates of him, Harrison Phillips in Buffalo, Patrick Jones at the University of Pittsburgh. Let's hear from them about Damar.
Yeah, I'm very close to the situation. As Damar was close to my locker, and when I spent my time in Buffalo and helped out with my foundation a little bit too because of his giving nature. but I would have been surprised at how many people who have zero ties and zero connection to him himself or to Buffalo and how much they're impacted. And because we are a brotherhood, and I think the NFLPA has done a great job providing resources for those who have questions and talking about calls for all members of our union and their spouses and families to talk through the situation, because I'm sure every single significant other of a player has said to that player, this could have been you, and so it touches really, really hard for us. We are we compete like hell when we're out there against each other, but that is a brother that I look across when I look across the line of scrimmage. And so I'm loving all the support and prayers. I believe in the power of prayer heavily, and I believe that that's helping move the needle.
I talked to Harrison about it a little bit, but we haven't really gotten the details about anything like that. It's more like just updates right now. Only thing I could think of is just making sure my brother okay. I mean, me and DeMar went way back. We came in together, did 5 years at Pitt together, left together, got to play against each other, see each other. I mean, the only thing on my mind right now is just making sure my brother okay and just keeping him and his family in my prayers.
Great thoughts from a couple former teammates of Damar Hamlin. So as we approach the final week of the regular season and pivot to the Chicago Bears, and we've discussed the offensive line situations, the injury problems there, let's hear from Kirk Cousins about the O-line, the replacements, and his confidence level.
Very difficult to lose Brian, to lose Austin. Injuries in general are just always difficult to take, but grateful for Oli Udoh's abilities and what he's shown for 4 years now in this league, and his ability to step in at right tackle. And Chris Reed as well at center is a guy who's played a lot of football in this league and is a total pro. So when you have players like that who are able to step in and play, it helps a great deal in the game planning process, in the comfort level from a quarterback's perspective. And just getting off the practice field now, felt that Chris was really dialed in and just did a great job handling all the moving parts of playing the center position. So, in a good place with the depth that they provide.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Kevin O'Connell plays this game against the Bears in particular, because of the situation the Vikings are in. They're in the number 3 seed, losing that number 2 spot to San Francisco with the loss in Lambeau Field. And the 49ers are hosting Arizona with no Kyler Murray. San Francisco with a chance still even at the number 1 seed if they win and Philly loses to the Giants, which is not going to happen, by the way, because the Giants are locked in at number 6. So they are going to probably rest guys like Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, I would assume. But how is Kevin O'Connell going to play this? And I would strongly suggest that he sit out some of the key guys. And I'm talking about guys who have had some injury history: Dalvin Cook, Danielle Hunter, Zadarius Smith, Eric Kendricks, Harrison Smith. And I also would sit out Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, because why are you going to risk them unless you really thought that San Francisco could lose that this week? And I think the Vikings can win without those guys against Chicago with no Justin Fields, playing Nathan Peterman as their quarterback, who has been awful in his NFL career. I'm surprised he's still got a job in the league. His career stats: 3 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a 1-3 record as a starter. The Bears, with the number 28 defense, number 31 against the run, sit Dalvin down, run Alexander Madison 30 times, and get the heck out of Dodge and get ready for the playoffs. But before we hear from the coach about how he's thinking about this game, let's talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. It's time to visit your Select Minnesota GMC dealers and hit the turf in a truck that's designed to tackle the toughest proving grounds. That's the GMC Sierra SLE. It's bold, precise, and capable. Sierra comes standard with a 2.7-liter turbo high-output engine, delivering 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. Or call a winning play with an available 3.0-liter Duramax turbo diesel engine with a 10-speed automatic transmission. And when it comes to comfort and refinement, climb in and discover the convenience of the standard 13.4-inch diagonal center touchscreen. And don't forget, Sierra is truly the MVP. With the world's first available 6-function multi-pro tailgate, it's the new year, a great time to step up to the professional grade season. good luck in the playoffs to the Vikings. Test drive a new GMC Sierra SLE today. The year's best selection is available now at your select Minnesota GMC dealers or online at TwinCitiesBuickGMC.com. So, Jason, let's cue up the coach, Coach O'Connell, and hear what he's thinking about this upcoming game in Chicago.
As hard as it is to transition to, we take on a very tough Chicago team, on the road, NFC North divisional games on the road. There's a lot for our team to still play for, in addition to getting the taste of last Sunday's performance out of our mouth with a great week of preparation and having that translate to our performance. We've had a lot of evaluation and critical evaluation of where we're at as a team, both the good and the things that we can improve on, and look forward to hitting the grass today with our team over the next 2 or 3 days and preparing our team accordingly.
Now, if we think back to October 9th, the Vikings defeated Chicago here at US Bank Stadium 29-22 in that game. And it was a very close game. The Vikings were down 1 point in the fourth quarter. The Bears actually came into that game, I believe they were 2-2 at that point in time. Vikings had to fight for that victory. Now, this is a totally different Chicago Bears team without Justin Fields. Obviously, you're talking about a guy who has over 1,100 yards rushing. And if he had played this week, he would have had a shot at the NFL rushing record of Lamar Jackson for quarterbacks. But I think it also sends a message not only to the world out there, but also to his team that, hey, perhaps we're not really considering this a crucial game. And I'm talking about Matt Eberflus here, the Bears coach, because we're going to sit Justin Fields, who played last week when the Bears got slaughtered in Detroit 41-10. So he's sitting him down with a hip injury.
Yeah, tanking in the NFL doesn't happen, right, Jeff?
No.
Doesn't happen at all.
Exactly. And so
they're in play for the number 1 overall pick. I don't blame them.
No,
I really don't.
No.
There's no reason to. And if he actually, and I think he did have this shoulder issue a few weeks ago too. So this I think has been a problem for him. There's no reason to throw him out there. There isn't. Sure, he can break a record. That's fine, but it's not worth it. He's your franchise quarterback.
It absolutely is not, and I agree. They're still going to play to win. They're going to play hard, but they're undermanned at this point. Darnell Mooney, their best receiver, is also out, and so I certainly expect the Vikings to come away with a victory. But I think they also have to be very careful in who they're playing in this game. But as I said, looking back to October 9th, let's just kind of revisit what happened in that game. A couple key plays. Here is a touchdown run. Dalvin Cook on the day had 2 touchdowns, 94 yards rushing. As I said, against that Bears rush defense, it's number 31 in the league.
11th play of this Minnesota drive is a Dalvin Cook walk-in touchdown.
So Dalvin scored there, and Justin Jefferson, another huge day on this particular game. 12 catches, 154 yards. Hopefully we don't see JJ this week, no. Unless he lobbies with Kevin O'Connell because he wants to win the NFL receiving title.
Don't listen to him, KOC.
Exactly. I agree.
Love you, JJ, but new.
I agree with you 100%. But here's one of JJ's great plays in this particular game.
Cousins has a separated receiver, and if you had to take a guess as to whom it was,
it is Justin Jefferson. The winning touchdown was scored by the quarterback. Kirk Cousins on a quarterback sneak.
Cousins trying to sneak it. And Kirk Cousins. They're already popping off the fireworks. No signal yet. It looked like he was in, and he is for a go-ahead touchdown in the fourth.
Yeah, take your time, officials.
Which, I mean, based off their performance this season, they should take all the time they need.
Not shocking. Okay. No, it's not shocking. And the Bears got the ball back at the end. They're driving, and Justin Fields making some plays until this particular play. A former Viking, Ihmir Smith-Marsette, and Cam Dantzler, of all people, after his rough season last year, makes the big play in the game to steal the ball.
Fields underneath. He finds the former Viking Ihmir Smith-Marsette, and it's stripped away by Dantzler. He takes it down into Bears territory. A huge turnover with a minute to go.
That was a fantastic play by Dantzler. And that was back in the days when the Vikings defense was playing pretty well. That particular day, they held Fields to 208 yards passing and held him to 47 yards rushing. The Bears' other running backs, David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert, had 31 yards between them. Mm-hmm. So the Vikings were playing really good run defense at that point, forcing turnovers, as we said. It's kind of the formula that they need to get back to come playoff time to be more effective on defense and also being able to rush the passer, getting Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter going come playoff time, Wanham, Patrick Jones. That's going to be critical for this team because, as we said, the offense may not be quite up to speed without the offensive line being intact, and so the games may be a little more low scoring. The Vikings are going to have to make plays on defense come playoff time. So I think that's what's going to be interesting. As we said, how are the Vikings going to play this game? Who are they going to start? Who are they going to keep in the ball game? I would play Cousins maybe a quarter at most in this particular game.
I think you for sure got to have the entire offensive line out there.
Yeah.
Whichever starters you intend on.
Oh, for sure.
Besides Garrett Bradbury, if he can't play, and I don't want him to play anyway, but you need Chris Reed to get those snaps at center. You need Oliu, though, out there at right tackle, too.
Yeah.
And you need the other guys, too, to get in sync with those guys because that's going to be very key come playoff time.
Yeah, I think that's all true. And I think it's still important to get a win. 13-4 sounds a lot better than 12-5, even though 12 wins is still great.
I'll take it.
Yeah, and 12 wins we would have taken back in August for sure. Mm-hmm. But 13-4 really sounds good. However, when you look at the playoff race, and we can talk about that in a second, I don't think it's going to make a difference whether it's 12 or 13. So let's again talk about our great sponsor, the Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers. It's time to visit your Select Minnesota GMC dealers and hit the turf in a truck that's designed to tackle the toughest proving grounds. That's the GMC Sierra SLE. It's bold, precise, and capable. Sierra comes standard with a 2.7-liter turbo high-output engine, delivering 310 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. Or call a winning play with an available 3.0-liter Duramax turbo diesel engine with a 10-speed automatic transmission. And when it comes to comfort and refinement, climb in and discover the convenience of the standard 13.4-inch diagonal center touchscreen. And don't forget, Sierra is truly the MVP. With the world's first available 6-function multi-pro tailgate, it's the new year, a great time to step up to the professional-grade season. Good luck in the playoffs to the Vikings. Test drive a new GMC Sierra SLE today. The year's best selection is available now at your Select Minnesota GMC dealers or online at TwinCitiesBuickGMC.com. So, talking again about the Bears, they got whipped last week in Detroit. Jared Goff threw for 3 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had a couple touchdowns in that particular ball game. And the Bears defense was throttled for over 250 yards on the ground, which is why I say run the ball, Vikings, this week. Run the clock. 268 yards rushing they gave up to Detroit in this game. Let's look at a couple of plays with the Lions and DeAndre Swift.
On first down on the toss, it is Swift.
Beautiful.
Inside the 5, end zone, touchdown. Makes it look easy.
Yeah.
I would say pretty much untouched there for DeAndre Swift.
Had about 20 yards there.
Yes. And Swift had another touchdown.
Second down and 9. Goff spins, throws, caught. It's Swift to the end zone. Another touchdown. Second today for DeAndre Swift.
No one touched him again.
Again, yes.
Oh, boy.
And the Bears offense, not very good in this game. 7 net yards passing at halftime. Ooh.
30
for the game.
Yeah,
and that's with Justin Fields.
For as much as he's a great runner, There's a lot left to be desired there still as a passer for him. He's kind of lucky if he eclipses 150 yards per game.
Yeah.
He's uber talented, but I'm just saying there's still, and he turns the ball over quite a bit too. He fumbles a lot as well.
Yeah.
So.
But I think the Bears are going to have some extra picks from the Khalil Mack trade and from trading Roquan Smith and also Robert Quinn as they kind of went into their rebuild mode. So they're going to have a bunch of extra picks, and I'm sure they're going to try to juice up that offensive line, the passing attack with some better receivers. And the Bears, I think, have some talent, but they do need some help for Fields. I think he's a quality player. I think he'll continue to get better. For the Vikings, going into this game, a couple keys, not turning the ball over. The 4 turnovers killed them in Green Bay. We know that. The kickoff return cover unit has to be better after Nixon had the 105-yard kickoff return for the Packers, which was a huge play in the game, gave them a 14-3 lead when the Packers had 14 yards of offense at that point. And as we mentioned before, got to get the pass rush going. There were no sacks for Hunter or Smith in this game. Hopefully the Vikings don't play them this week, but only 2 quarterback hits between them. That has got to get better come playoff time. And 2 catches combined for Jefferson and Thielen, that's not going to cut it. So back to the drawing board, figure out ways to get those guys the ball. And as we said, Cousins, perhaps more short passing. And this is a good week to start planning that attack and trying to work on those things with the short passing game. Even though the Bears' pass rush is dismal, they've only got 20 sacks this season, last in the league. So the Vikings should have an opportunity to make plays down the field, whether it's Kirk Cousins or whether it's Nick Mullins, who I'm sure is going to get a fair amount of play time in this game. And he threw a nice touchdown at the end of the Packer game in garbage time to KJ Osborne. So I think we'll see a lot of Osborne. We'll see a lot of Jalen Reagor. We'll see a lot of Jalen Naylor. And that's just fine. Hawkinson will probably play to start the game, but I'd get him out quick too. I'd get guys like Dalvin Tomlinson out of there fairly quickly because, again, he has had some injury issues this season. So that's going to be the challenge, I think, for the Vikings as they enter this game in Chicago. Figure out how they're going to play it and then kind of do a little scoreboard watching after the game because the 49ers are playing later. I was a little surprised they didn't put them on at the same time since those games affect each other, but the Vikings will try to get the win and then watch San Francisco steamroll Arizona and then figure, maybe. Okay, we've got the Giants coming in, which may not be a bad thing when you think about it, because would you rather play the Giants in the first round or would you rather have San Francisco lose and you win and you end up playing Green Bay here? I think I'd rather face...
but then you get the revenge on the Packers, though. Yeah. See, that's just it. I kind of like getting the opportunities to really get back at the teams I don't like,
and that's
all
when
they
true.
beat my team good.
Yeah, because then you would still have the chance for a second home game against San Francisco here. So I would agree. I would take the number 2 seed if you can get it.
Yeah, but
it would make I think a tougher first round matchup certainly. But it would be a fun week if it was Packer week for the third time for the rubber match. That would be exciting too. And as we said, some other big games around the league to keep an eye on this weekend. Tennessee travels to Jacksonville to decide the lousy AFC South, and that'll be on Saturday night. The Sunday night game, Packers and the Lions. I think the Lions are going to play Green Bay tougher than people think because this Lions team has improved, but ultimately I think Green Bay gets the win. And several other big games that are on tap this weekend around the league, and in the AFC, New England controls the last seed right now, but they have to go to Buffalo. But what's the mindset for the Bills coming off this horrible week with their safety, Damar Hamlin, in the hospital fighting for his life? How is their focus going to be? So all interesting games coming up in Week 18 in the NFL, and then we will be back next week to break down the Bears and advance the playoffs. We'll know by then if indeed the playoffs are delayed a week to play that Cincinnati-Buffalo game. A lot of things kind of hanging in the balance here, Week 18. But we do know Damar Hamlin is improving. That's a great thing, great sign. And the Vikings head to Chicago, and we'll see how they play it as far as their play time for their starters in this game. So this has been Jeff Diamond's Purple Report on Thursday. We're brought to you today, every Thursday, and every Monday during the season. We'll be back on Monday to break down the Bear game. And the show is presented by your Select Minnesota Buick GMC dealers on 1500 ESPN, available 24/7 on YouTube via links from the 1500 ESPN and Score North websites. This is Jeff Diamond with Jason Stormer, wishing everybody have a good rest of the week, good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.